of the soul, like everyone talks about the dark nights of the soul, but actually, what is that? Like, let's be real. What actually does that look like?
Question.
Like, what do you experience when you refer to that? And like, do you think there's only one, or do you think there's different layers of it? And how do you see the dark night of the soul? Hey,
Hello.
hey, hey, my lovely.
I've been on for a couple weeks. It's felt like a long time.
I know, literally felt like a lifetime. I was like, has it only been a week? He was like, no, it's been two. I was like, oh, that makes more sense. It felt so
Felt like
long, like so much
forever.
can happen in 2 weeks.
Exactly.
I don't know
Um,
about anybody else, but did anyone have that mystery flu again last week? Because that was not good. Not
but
good.
yeah, something definitely moved through for me too. Got
What do you
lots of stuff
reckon
on my
that
face.
was?
Can't help it. So everybody's watching. Get a good glare.
Literally. What do you think that was, this mystery flu that we've all been experiencing? What are your takes on that? Do you think it's individual based, or I don't know, there's just so many people experiencing it. That's why I thought I'd ask.
I do think it's individual based, but when I was in it, it was just some deep density moving
Mm,
it through. Not that it had, like, I could see the facets of it in my own body that it was picking up, but it just looked like a lot of shedding.
yeah. Yeah, for me it was like I don't really get a headache often. I never really experience a headache.
Yeah.
And I got a headache, like really bad. And it felt like motion, lights,
Yeah.
anything like that. And again, like I said, I never really get any issues with the crown chakra. And obviously, I've got two little babies, and I was on my own, bed was working. So I was literally fighting for my life, trying to focus and maintain human function in my brain and my body because my brain just felt so much pressure and it
Yeah.
felt like my head was being squished in and all one side of my head was so sensitive and my skin, it just felt like
Yeah.
I've not really felt a flu like that before other than in January of 2020 before the big experience we all went through. I
Um,
did experience a really weird flu then as well for like a week in the January of that year. So weirdly enough, that is also the January of this year. Um, and yeah, I just thought it was worth mentioning because I'd experienced a smaller version a couple of weeks ago,
sure.
and that was like a big chest detox, flu detox. And then again these past few weeks, and I'm still clearing out in the throat chakra and all my chest area. Like I'm still
Yep.
clearing out that last bit of flu. And it was actually me that got it the worst out of the kids. And I was just like you say, I was sat deep in it the other day in my own body thinking, I wonder what the message was, because luckily it was me that got it worse rather than the kids, because I don't know how they'd have experienced that level of pressure in the head. It was really overwhelming. Um, but yeah, we had similar experiences, and I know a few people that also had similar experiences. So that's why I thought I'd bring it up because when weird shit's going on in the collective, it's important to mention it just in case there is a link with some of us that do help transmute and are also releasing his own stuff and working through our own energy because as everything it's mind body soul, and we have to work with releasing on a spiritual level, an energetic level, a conscious level, and through the body.
All of the levels.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yep. Now
Yeah.
I've still got some mucus that's moving its way through. So,
Yeah.
uh,
It's,
but yeah.
it's, it's great. It's wonderful. No, I'm joking. No, I had to say to my son, I was like, Mummy's body's just healing itself right now because I don't want to use negative terminology about the body when it's going through a process, especially with his brain. Like, I don't want to create that. So, but I was like, I'm really not feeling them words in this vibe. Like, I'm feeling not good, I'm feeling a
Yeah.
bad. But
Yeah.
yeah, I guess we sometimes just need to rest and have a little bit of a break. And so we had that last week. We had an unexpected, unscheduled break, but we're back and we're ready to connect in. We've got some new energies and we're prepping. I feel the collective is definitely prepping for the year of the horse. We're getting that fiery energy. We've been picking up on it for a couple of months, don't get me wrong, but the energy is coming in strong and clear now. The pathway's been built, the
Yes.
doorways are being opened, they're being shown to us, and that can be a really daunting time for some. If if you're new to this as well, if you're new to this weird and wonderful world of the awakening, then welcome first of all. Welcome
How do
to
you
the
do
show. It's a wild ride over here. We're finding us feet as we go, and me and Z claim on nearly every video I think we do that we also don't know what the fuck's going on. Like, let's just be real.
well,
We're just figuring it out too. We're here navigating the whole journey with you, and we try and keep it as real as possible, as authentically as whatever we're going through. We kind of own that and we communicate that, and I think that's important because, again, no shade to anyone or anything in specific in this spiritual world, but as much as there is falseness and ego in most aspects of the 3D world, I find personally there is so much falseness and ego in the spiritual community. And I really struggle to vibe with that. I'm not going to lie. I struggle to vibe with the hierarchy, with the power being given away, with people giving their power away to other
Sure.
people, putting people on platforms, with this whole concept of people being at an unattainable level to other people, or this like worshipping level, or being gifted and like magical to other people, like it's, in my opinion, it's just not true. We're all gifted, we're all magical, we all have, I'm not saying we're all gifted at the same thing, we all have specific, unique pieces of the puzzle, that's the point. But we are no more special than you watching this video. And I think that's so important to kind of highlight, emphasize with a big green highlighter and an underlining mark and an exclamation mark. It's really important.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I just think it's misconstrued a lot. What do you think? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, we had discussed today about bridging this gap between reality and spirituality and like walking that talk and being able to be authentic. I don't align with the spirituality communities. I don't really interface with them. I've obviously dived into them before, and work with them to extent of my own healing and being able to connect in certain levels. But I also don't co-align with the hierarchy piece. The being gifted piece is a big tick for me. uh, the being needing to go to somebody else for information, all of those things are really not in alignment for me. And what I find is that I see quite a bit of, and now all of you who are listening to this as a perspective just see a whole lot of fakeness. I see a whole lot of speaking a lot of verbiage or spit out
Yeah.
people's information that just keeps circulating around. And generally, I'm like, okay, well, what are you actually feeling about that
Yeah,
underneath
what are
that?
you trying to say there? Like, what's the point?
And so I see a lot of that kind of generating around, which is why I don't go on social media or any of that anymore. I'm in my own process with it. But what I'm really trying to say with that is, how do we bridge that gap? What does that look like? Because I'm not one to throw out the realness of the humanity and collective of things that we're moving through, which there's some deep stuff out there, right, that we're moving through. And I'm certainly not the one to turn around and say, hey, I'm on this new level and this new line, I'm in 5D right now. I'm gonna da 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 da, and that is no longer part of my reality. I don't interact with the world that way because that doesn't feel real to me. I know that there's stuff still out there, and I do realize that that's part of my background. It has to do with that because I've been in some really deep places, and I also know those are still things that are still moving around in the collective, so I'm not going to deny that. But
Mhm.
I think that's the question. How do we bridge that?
Yeah, and what a great question because it's like, let's not bullshit, let's not put fluff on it and make it all look pretty and nice and pretend that it's not just real life shit and real life human navigation.
Right.
How many times, like today I was saying I'm doing so much work on the nervous system right now, which is great, wonderful, but then I've had an extremely busy day and my body was kind of like, well, I thought we weren't doing this anymore, and I was kind of like, well, no, we've still got to do the life. We
Yeah,
just
sure.
not going to do it in fight or flight every second of every minute. So we're just going to focus on regulating a lot more through that experience. And I guess my body was kind of like, oh, okay, well, I didn't expect that. It was like new information that it gained because it's just got this like rest of being in hyper fight or flight for majority of my life. And then
Right.
it's like, oh, okay, so we're not resting. But that's the thing, I am resting and I'm honoring that rest. But I also do live an extremely busy life right now. I have cats, dogs, children, business, houses, lots of things to sort out,
Yep.
moved house. There's just so much to deal with. And I think that sometimes that is the inevitable. And it's a great analogy of what you were saying there, Z. Like, how do we bridge the gap? Well, sometimes we don't try. I think that's a great question, like point to emphasize. It's
Yep.
more doing rather than thinking and planning and all the things, because I'm a great thinker and planner, but then struggle to sometimes execute it out of fear of failure, fear of rejection, whatever fear is coming up at that time. And I think that's a big thing in the collective, right? Like, we have all these ideas and all this talking, and that's what I said to myself at the beginning of 2026. Stop talking about these things. Stop talking about this book you want to do
Right.
and this song you want to make and the fact you want to do more of this and more of that. Like, how about just doing it? You know, how
Right.
about just actually taking the action, doing the steps, taking 10 small minutes a day to put towards that specific thing, to actually then, in essence, for me, that's bridging the gap between the idea and the reality of it. And that's by doing it rather than planning it and thinking about it and talking about it. And just doing the things I need to do in small levels, little tiny baby steps. And ironically, I found a rock I'd painted today, just moving the last bits of my stuff from my old house. And I painted it when I was in hospital on 26 tablets a day, wildly depressed and anxiety out of my head, and just thinking that this was my life now. And found a rock, and it was shaped like a little mountain, like just a small one went up, and I drew grass and walking up, and then there's little me walking up the mountain with a little stick, and it says on it, "Remember to take it one step at a time." And I drew that rock painting because I remember telling myself, like, you're always trying to run. You see the mountain and you think, all right, I've got to get to the top of it. Like, and that's who I am. I've always been that way. But that's why I get extremely burnt out and getting these issues. And so I guess it kind of just took me a minute to realize that we do still have to just take it one step at a time. Sometimes we can't expect ourselves to see the mountain and hike all the way up it. We have to do the things we need to do, but
Right.
also within a limitation that works for self.
Absolutely. And that takes its time because you are working with all the components of your current physical reality, your body, your nervous system, how that works, your soul, your energy in that pathway.
Yeah.
And at least for me, how I interpret that and how I move through that is I'm going to take the action step once I hear it now. There's no waiting for me. There is rest and space in between there, but once I hear it, I'm going to do it. That's how I bring it into my physical reality. And it's not that I'm feeling my outcome or I have it all on a vision board. Like, I don't do that anymore. Because to me, like, that was really cute. And I obviously needed to put the action into my words. And so I feel myself, just like you said, just doing it. I'm just
Mhm.
going to do it. That's the next step. I'm going to take, and now it's an easier flow in my body to do that because I'm more regulated over time, even when it feels like there's a lot going on. I don't feel it as much being busy as like that shock was, oh wow, look, I'm regulated while I'm doing this.
Yeah.
And that's weird. That's new, right? My body has capacity to do these things, and I still have to do the human things. That is a natural part of my reality. And now I'm getting more excited about doing those because I'm not in constant chaos 24/7.
Right, right. And it's just the small things. Like, I'm late to everything usually. And I've arrived at forest school on time 3 weeks in a row. In
Yeah.
fact, with extra time. Get that? With extra time to spare. Like, for me, that's like a miracle. It's genuinely, anyone that knows me knows that is a genuine miracle. Because it's just pure chaos usually. Running out of the door, so late, rushing, stress. And now this morning I was genuinely sat there thinking, like, why do I have so much time? Like, what's going on? Like, this time before forest school, usually I'm like, I don't even have a minute to breathe. And don't get me wrong, I'm still busy. I'm still packing bags. I'm still changing nappies, still getting dressed, children, and doing all the jobs. But finding that there's so much more time. And I feel like it's because my body's just not in pure chaos. And I'm not like, just pure manic chaos. That there just feels like more flow, more natural rhythm, more natural flow. There's less chaos in the home because I'm less dysregulated. Everything just feels, and because there's less chaos in the mind, I'm not forgetting everything. I'm not setting off too late. I'm not forgetting the essential things. And it's just, yeah, it makes a huge difference. And I think what I realized today, even though I had the busy day, I was like, you know what? Life is about busy days. Like, that's the point. How boring would it be if we just sat here day in, day out, not doing anything and not having anything to create or challenge by or experience or work through? Like, that's the point of being human. That's the point of being alive. That's the point of experiencing this wonderful dance of human existence. But in the same sense, like we said earlier, let's not bullshit and pretend that sometimes it doesn't feel like the depths of despair and you just want to be anywhere but in this human body. Like, I've been there and I've experienced that still recently. This is not something that goes away just because you gain more spiritual knowledge. I know and have experienced many people that know some fantastic knowledge, and I mean incredible, incredible knowledge. But some of them are not the nicest people, and some of them were not the most evolved people, and some of them were not the most connected to self and connected to nature and connected to others and their mission and life as they could have been. But they knew unfathomable knowledge. They knew incredible life changing knowledge for me. And I will never discredit that. So just be aware that if you're giving someone this power, I did it. One of the first spiritual people I watched, and I remember hearing someone say what I was thinking and feeling online. It was like, oh my God, this person gets me, they get this, like, yeah,
Oh,
they're on the vibe, like this could be incredible, like, and I remember watching and thinking I could never be like that sometimes, like I could never get to that point. I'm not strong enough. I remember having them thoughts. And then I met her. And do you remember that saying of like, don't meet the people you look up to? Well, let's just say I learned that lesson deeply that day. And I don't really believe I've ever looked up to anyone since then in that way, like, especially not in the spiritual career. Like, I have a lot of people I respect deeply, deeply respect. But yeah, never gave my power away again after that. And I watched that experience I went on that weekend. I watched people find things that the higher self had brought them and say, oh, I'm going to give it away to the facilitator because it was for that. And it was like, how are you seeing that that gift was for you and you've just passed it to someone else? In the same way you're giving your power to someone else because you believe that they're more worthy or more capable or more skilled than you could ever be. But that's not actually true.
yeah,
Mm.
yeah. And I would say with that, because that's a huge piece, I've had a few knocks on those doors, where I had to realize, wow, that is giving my power away, or I was pedestal, and what I did with that was then significantly shut myself down and like close off anything that I had to my natural connection. So it kind of goes both ways in that essence, and it's really coming back to how do I want to work with that in my own reality, because everybody's going to perceive this differently, you know. I know people who'd be perfectly fine sitting all day long. Right?
Yeah.
Like, and that's a-okay. Not for me if I didn't have contrast get me off this planet, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, for me, like I love the peace and relaxation. Don't get me wrong, there is some part of me that craves more stability, but I think the whole point is to learn, even if that's through
Sure.
play. It doesn't need to be through pain in every essence. It could be through play, but for me, there has to be learning. I need to be learning. My soul needs to be expanding, gaining new knowledge, skills, expansion, like you, Z. I just need to be learning new shit. It's like part of my purpose here on Earth is to just expand what I came here to embody, you
For
know,
sure.
of the soul. Like, everyone talks about the dark nights of the soul, but actually, what is that? Like, let's be real. What actually does that look like?
Question.
Like, what do you experience when you refer to that? And like, do you think there's only one, or do you think there's different layers of it? And how do you see the dark night of the soul?
That's that's just a wide question. And there's so many layers of perspectives on that piece, right? Uh, that I mean, I feel like I've walked many. In fact, I feel like I have a period in the day where a
Right.
piece of it comes back, right? And I'm like, oh look, there's some darkness.
There she
So
is. Yeah.
I know exactly. So for me, it's facing my darkness, which I don't feel like is darkness. It's just a natural aspect of me. It could feel deep. It could feel intense. There could be a lot of emotion to it. There's trauma behind some of the pieces that have come up, and that's me acknowledging that that's there and fully embodying that piece and shifting it as I feel like is appropriate.
Yeah.
So I started taking the Dark Knight, just the verbiage out of there for a while because I'm like, to me, I don't see light and dark that way, and dark
Yeah,
being bad
and I
at
get that.
all.
I do get that. I guess the way I would use that word, or have used that word previously, is the first night time I experienced like the dark night of the soul was going through, my stomach problem, being in the hospitals, being depressed,
Yeah,
anxiety, having all the
absolutely.
panic attacks, and being like, yo, what the fuck's going on? Like, am I meant to just live like this? Is this normal? Like, am I meant to keep experiencing this suffering and this pain? Like, this is just an everyday occurrence? And I remember thinking, like, surely this is not life, this is not filling my soul in any way. And then obviously, went into so many aspects through the medical system, detoxing, health, mind, body, soul, da da da. And many times I sat there, but that first time, I guess it was like a break from the rat race, from the circle, because
Or
you I guess maybe had it totally different because you've had such deep experience in your own life, and from an early age you were exposed to such things that I feel like in my experiences it was more like we said before, like micro cuts. So like little paper cuts over time that created my traumas, which again, there's no comparison or right or wrong way. It's just what we chose as a soul. And so for me, the dark night of the soul really was like the first time I had to actually sit in a period of darkness for like a while, not just for a night. Like a night implies it's a night. No, it wasn't a night. It was like a good year or two of just like no break from that feeling, that emotion, that heaviness. And again, at the time, you feel like it's not going to end. And then when you've been through it and you get there and you're like the reborn, you're like, oh my God, I'm never going to go back there. And then you're back there and you're like, oh shit. And it's like this whiplash scenario of every time you grow and level up, you have to sit with that layer of self, like you said. You have to sit with them aspects of self that are stopping you from getting to that next layer. And so each time there is an expansion point, there is a shedding point, and whatever word you want to put on that, dark night of the soul, reborn, detoxing, I don't know, whatever, I like to use releasing a lot, that's a good word, or, sitting with the things and the emotions, sitting with yourself. And like you say, Z, it's like that kind of acknowledgement that that's not gonna go away, like them periods of time, if you want to keep leveling up, if you want to expand, and I don't just mean on a physical, materialistic level. Like for me, they're actually the last ones to come into fruition. I've gained control over my health or balance over my health. I mean, I don't get sick often. If I'm not doing a detox, I don't really get sick. My children don't get sick. And this is from the girl that lived in a hospital for 10 years nearly, so a lot of things can change, and I've healed many aspects of my inner life, material life and physical life. But in the actual aspects of it, the last things to come into fruition are the final physical materialistic things. And isn't that funny that the thing that you think you want is sometimes the last thing that you actually get because it's the last thing you need. What you actually need to do first is work through all of these layers that are linked to creating the scenario of what it is that you want in that you're not getting. And so yeah, I guess I wanted to bring that up because I think there's this big misconception in the spiritual community that, oh, someone's been through one dark night of the soul, now they're ascended. Lovely.
sure.
And that's not true. Like it's not true. Like if you're doing that, then you're probably not ascending any further than where you're at because you're staying at one level. You're staying stuck.
Yeah, yeah. No, I would say that Dark Knight comes in many different layers over time, and again, there's just so many pieces to that. I would also say, like for me, going through my first near-death experience would have been that awakening point where I went through that darkness piece, but I didn't hit more of it until later when more of those layers came up, and
Mm,
it took
mm,
me out for months because I need to sit with it,
yeah.
to be with
Right.
that,
Yep.
and. Also, too, like with that misconception, because I see it quite often, is like we're gonna We're going to clear that piece. So we're going to bring it back to source, right? And like
Absolutely, I
that's just
remember
not my
too.
experience, right? Those
No, it-
pieces of me who experience those deep aspects are very much so a part of me now. They do different jobs. They work very differently, but that's a part of the potency of my power coming back to me. I experience that. That's my depth. I have perception because of that. That's where the
right,
knowledge can come in, and I can use that knowledge, which is where I think that's a little bit different from spitting out lots and lots of knowledge, which, I've done that too in the past. Don't get me wrong. Like I've had those times where there it is. But here's the thing, if I am not walking it, if I am literally not embodying it, um, which to me means I'm not going to be talking about it that much because I don't need to at that
yeah,
point.
right, right.
Right. It's not going to stay steady, and I'm also not going to grow essentially
Mhm.
with my physical body. And if I say, oh, I went through my dark night, I've ascended now, which I don't even use that word very often anymore. In fact, I'll use descension more than ascension because I'm getting more of myself back in my physical body, more of
Right,
my energy, more of my soul, and I'm walking it in this space. I don't need to ascend anywhere to do that. But I do find all these concepts very curious, and I've had to dive very deeply into each one of those aspects too. And it's just at the end of the day, how am I showing up for myself? How am I showing up for the people that I love? How am I showing up for humanity in a way that I know I'm part of the collective? I'm not going to deny the reality that there's really deep shit happening. Let's just get real, right?
right.
I'm not gonna do that. But also, how can I take action? How can I speak my voice? How can I move with my clients and things like that? That also gives the power back to them because I don't want anybody's power. In fact,
Right.
if I'm sitting across from you as equal, and if I want to get along or do a group with people, it's because I want to be equals with the people and play with y'all as equals because you have your own power, you have your own unique set of gifts, and I actually want to see those.
Yeah, me too. Yeah,
Yeah.
me too. I'm excited to watch that. I think, like I said, that's one of the biggest things I absolutely love about this job is watching someone arrive as one person and
Yes.
watching them leave as the whole person because it's like literally a different person. Watching someone expand
Absolutely.
and grow. And any retreat you come on with us, you'll get that same introduction of like, listen, we're all exactly the same. There is no hierarchy here. There is no, don't disturb us in us like because we have this hierarchy thing, it's all a flow. It's all everybody together, everybody eating together, everybody connecting together. And I think that's really important, that vibe of connection. Oneness and community. That don't mean you're not allowed boundaries in your own space and your own communication. Like that's exactly what you need to communicate. But I guess I loved what you touched on there, like that concept of people thinking things are like instantaneously done or gone or like removed away and this like separation and segregation of self. Of course we are multiple aspects, of course we are like this multifaceted part, but in the same respect we are also this ever evolving, ever healing part. And I think there's a big, again, misconception in the spiritual world. Like, I am an energy worker myself, as you guys know. I'm a reader, healer, all the channelers, whatever word you want to use. And if it was easy for me just to go, right, go back to source, see, you're done now, bye. I'd have done it. Like, I think sometimes the point is you have to work through all them layers to get to the point where it's ready to be released back to source. And until it is, you can't just command it to go because
Yep.
you're consciously, subconsciously, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, nervous systemly, muscle memorily connecting to this emotion and creating it again and again and again and again and again. And until you sit with them aspects as to why, I just don't believe it's just going to disappear. I think maybe you could potentially think it has for a couple of days and weeks and then maybe try and reprogram it, but until you actually sit with the root, it's like cutting the
Right.
grass. It's like cutting a weed without getting the root out. The weed is just going to grow back. Like you might not see it for a couple of weeks, but give it a few weeks and it'll be back. And that's the
Yep.
same thing, and I think it's a really important concept. And I know sometimes this can sound disheartening for people that have been through like tough shit and they've been through physical challenges and has been through health challenges and mental health challenges. Like I get it as someone that experienced both health and mental health. It's terrifying the thought of going back there. It's genuinely terrifying. And I never thought I'd go back to that level of depth again from where I've been in the past. And then I hit postpartum depression. It was a whole ride of itself. And again, it's not spoken about at all. And there's so much shame and stigma and
Right.
just so much stuff. Let me not even get started there because that's a whole session in itself, But it really is. I have so a lot to say on that issue. And, it's just so unspoken about. And hitting the level of depth hit in that experience, and the one comment that used to really grate my cheese grinder was, it's the happiest time of your life. You need to enjoy every second.
Oof.
I actually think I could have cried every time someone said it because it just made
Yep.
me feel like I was broken. Well, why am I not feeling like that then? Why do I really feel like I've never felt any emotion like this on earth, ever? And that's the thing, it was wild. And so, again, I never thought I'd hit the depth I went to again after being through them dark nights of the soul. And then I went there again and I had to find a way to re rise and relearn. But let me tell you, it was way quicker the second time. Like, it
Right.
was like, and again, I've been through many in between, but again, this is an extended period of time. Sometimes I go through them whether a day or two, a week, a few days, but when it's months on end, and that feels like a chunk of chapter in your memory, that for me is
Right.
more of a bigger chapter of evolutional shedding and healing. And
Yep.
yeah, I remember being sat there and thinking, how am I going to get out of this? And it only been a couple of weeks till I felt more regular and normal again, whereas that took me years to learn everything I learned the first time to get to that place. So
Right.
every time we go back to that level of depth, if we go back to that level of depth, the way out is far faster because you've done it before. You know
Right.
the route, you have options, you have choices. I had so much knowledge on how to come out of that situation rather than just feeling stuck.
Absolutely.
Mm.
And I mean, I've been there with you on that. And I also just want to speak for anybody who's out there who's been, and I'm going to call it depth. I have a lot of depth running through there.
Mm.
And I will pull from that depth too to create a lot of times because
Me
I,
too. That's the
you know,
place of
like that's
creation.
that is the deep place and I love it.
Me
I'm
too.
like, I will pull from there all day long to have that creation vibe be there. But just as a part of it, we've all been through these spaces, and I'm not gonna come on here and spiritually say that I'm gonna just I have risen to this level and that's it, that's all gone. No, 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 no. That gets to come along with me, and when it comes up, because my depth will come up and knock me on the face a little bit. I'm like, okay, so am I going back there? Like, what are we doing? Is my body?
Yeah.
Then you got to interface with your body because how is your body
Mhm.
interacting with your reality? What triggered the space, right? What does
Mhm.
that look like? And usually I just use it, comes in, I'll be like, hey, what do we want to do with this? Is there something in my body that would like to shift? Or are we using this for alchemization? Are we using this for our power to move forward on something? Just depending on what the perception is, and also knowing those spaces of being stuck, knowing that, you can take one step at a time, knowing that you're not alone in it, because we've all been there as well, and knowing that that depth is okay to have. It's a beautiful portion of yourself that, I personally wouldn't want to deny any of those facets of myself, and I want to see that in others too, because we all have it in there. We've all been through the things.
Right? And what a relief it is. I loved what you just said as well. Thank you for sharing that. What a relief it is when you talk to someone and they get it. Or you're that someone and you get them and you get that look from them like, yeah, you get it. And it's like that mutual knowledge of, yeah, I get your pain. Might not have been through the exact pain, but I get
Yep.
that level of depth like I've been there. And there's no need for words. There's no need for, oh
No.
yeah, and it felt like this, and yeah, and you experienced it like this. Like there's no need for that. It's just an instant knowing of
Yes.
I feel that, I get that, and again, no words. And I think sometimes, like when I was referencing back to, I love what you said, like that depth and the creation point. Some of the best music, the best films,
Yep.
the
Yep.
best masterpieces that have been created are from that place. And I
Absolutely.
think anyone that feels energy can feel it. When you are watching someone perform or watching them in any way perform, musician, actors, dancers, anything, watching someone perform from a place of raw emotion.
Yep.
It, and how interesting that the one thing science cannot explain in life, or many things, but this thing specifically, is why people get a physical reaction to sunsets, wrong side, sunsets, to music, to
True. Yep.
changing experiences that create a physical sensation like goosebumps, goose pimples, like crying. and heightened sensitivity and emotions and feelings and breathlessness from listening to music, from watching someone dance, from watching nature in its raw element. Why do we have this awe inside of us, this true yearning for connection with people that have truly felt depth, if it weren't meant to be experienced,
Absolutely.
you know?
And I use that as my kind of base point for what I want to track because the people that I want to work with can feel and experience the depth and they can show their own. You know, that's the real authenticity in that is can you be vulnerable in that depth that you have? And
Right?
I've got really, great people in my life who, I mean, they do deep, deep, deep death dives,
Oh,
lots of
they're
depth
my
where
kind of people. They're my kind of
exactly. Um, and going back to a point we discussed earlier, that doesn't always make, and at least I can only speak for myself. I mean, the most popular, it doesn't mean that I have a ton of followers because I'm not feeding dopamine hits. I'm
right.
not out there just giving information. I will meet you at the deepest depth that you want to be at. I'll be there with you, and I can walk alongside with you and let you know that hey, like I felt that too. And guess what? We're still in our power here
Mm-hmm.
and we can
Mm-hmm.
keep taking the walks in the depth. But that's what that does mean. I'm going to be fully honest and truthful with you all and take all these masks off. I'm going to experience and walk with you in depth, and that might be uncomfortable.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Are you prepared to walk through the unknown of yourself?
Yes,
We're not asking you to walk through uncomfortability for us or for
absolutely.
anyone else. It's got to be for you because you want it. And that's like you say, I loved what you brought up there. Let's be real. Me and Z, I mean, I think we're fantastic at what we do. I'll own that.
I love it. Yeah.
Pretty damn good at what we do. But in the same sense, like maybe we're not the most popular in this world, but that's okay. Like you said, we're not out here. Our intention, well, I can't speak on behalf of you, but I know your very energy very well, and our intention is to spread knowledge, to spread light, to spread empowerment of self, to
Yep.
spread wisdom and connection and community, and to also expand our individual selves to reach more of you guys to be able to do more good stuff in the world. And I know that that's such a huge part of me and Z. And me personally, there's products I won't endorse because I ain't going to use the chemicals and I'm not going to endorse it just because it's been offered to me on TikTok. There's certain things and ways in which we could change and tailor as whole setups and sessions and everything that would most likely be more algorithmically efficient
Yep.
because it doesn't align to ourselves and to our vision and to who we are as a core energy. It just ain't going down. And I think that sometimes in the short term, yeah, we might not be benefiting as much as other people that I call it selling your soul, but I won't be that harsh, in terms of like, because that is harsh and I don't mean it just like that. What I mean is it's like sometimes it's giving away your power, giving away your bit of magic, your little bit, like when people see something they shouldn't have seen, that's what it feels like. It's like that's your bit of magic and you shouldn't have to twist that and shape it and mold it and fit it into a box for it to get ticks and likes and views. And I think
Absolutely.
that that's like, apparently my right eye's watering. That's, I think, one of the things that it's literally just having to do on its own. What is it with my eyes on these calls? It's having a whole world of its own. It feels like a sense of that's the whole point. We're here to show up as our true self
Yep.
and not to be anybody else. With me funny
Absolutely.
way.
I love it. Good and I. And to that note, and for me personally, like I'm not always on. I don't always want to be online to perform or get likes. I don't do it for that reason anyways. I don't ever fit myself into a shoebox so that I can put things into an algorithm that people are going to consistently watch. Like that's just not me. I'm a very personal and spacious energy and I need that space and I'm mostly up out and about in the mountains doing my own interfacing and if not, I'm working with aligned clients who are ready to do the same thing and empower themselves and get themselves out in spaces where they can create. And that's where I want to put my energy into. I want to create. I'm not doing it for any other reason than this feels good to me at this moment. I'm going to express something. I'm not looking for anything back. And if you like, that's great. If not, that's great. Otherwise, I'm gonna know that the alignment phase is right for me, and then the things are gonna come in as they need, as they
Yeah,
need.
And one last question I want to just reflect back from that, Z, because that's awesome that you brought that up. Because I find there's a dance between, like, I've given many shit away, many stuff away for free, and like you have sessions and experiences just because they're needed, and that person can't afford it and they need it right now, and so that's just
Yep.
what's going down, because universally, of course, it's going to be gifted back to you in its own way, but in the same sense we then have to question, like, for me it's the dance between making sure I value myself enough to charge what I'm worth and actually like put the stuff out there so that it is available for people and actually follow through on the actions from the creation point. But then also knowing that it doesn't need to be so gatekept. There doesn't need to be this, well, it has to be this price and it has to be in this way and it has to be in this session. I've created sessions and then gone in to do that session and then ended up doing a completely different session because that's not what they needed. And,
Absolutely.
you know, didn't charge any different because that's what they paid for and that's what they got. Like they got what they needed out of that session. They got the time. And I get that. I guess that's what I'm kind of explaining. It's like the dance between that valuation and charging what you're worth and,
Sure.
picking that, but
Yeah.
also then knowing that we don't have to gatekeep anything. We can just give what we need, what we feel is right to give when we feel
Right.
right to give it. How would
Right.
you advise someone that's on that journey earlier on, like when we were, and it's like I am still sometimes myself, like what advice would you give to them if they feel like they're struggling with valuing themselves enough and not gatekeep, not charging too much or gatekeeping their information?
Sure. I mean, the first thing that I would say with the experience is to sit with yourself long enough to feel like what is your value? Because I've done this in the past and I've seen it both ways where like this is what I think other people would benefit and like this is my service. No, how much do you feel like you're worth? Sit with that.
Mm,
How much do you feel like in your body that your surface is worth for your time, your energy, the container you hold, and I've always had to break this down for myself. And then you just experiment and you try it and see how it feels. I think the main thing to that is don't hold back for any reason, thinking that, well, I might do that, see that type of energy pulling through into the space. Whereas I'm like, kid, this feels appropriate. I'm gonna try it out there and it might not work and you find another way to work it. And also I want to go back to exchange as it is itself because that does not always mean money at all. In
mm,
fact, I think exchange and connection has its own dance to it. And there are plenty of times where I get a very strong vibe with a client or a group that, oh, this is not a money exchange.
yeah,
I'm getting something else from this. And I test that. And that also has to do with my relationship with exchange and what does that look like and what does that feel like. Um, and I offer those varieties, especially when it's a really strong pull in my system to be like, hey, no, this is a different exchange. And I get excited about that, right? Because it doesn't
100%.
have to be, in that route. And I think where we're at now is we're expanding that phase where we're looking at money is not the only means of exchange because that has been the constant repetition moving through there. Um, and I do definitely believe in an exchange for work and services, and also
Yeah,
to see the changes moving through there.
yeah, I think that's a huge part of where we're shifting into is knowing that that in itself is a valuation of your gifts and skills, knowing that you can offer what you bring as a being to someone else as an exchange for what they bring, and it doesn't need to be you paying them or them paying you.
Exactly.
Again, valuing yourself enough to know that. I think that's a huge point, and I think the summary from this like experience we're trying to share today is that there's no right or wrong way to do this and to do anything. There's obviously there might be some right or wrong ways to do some things, but what I mean is in the essence is there's no way you need to show up other than yourself. You know,
Absolutely.
there might be certain environments, certain hats, certain corporate environments, things like that that you have to kind of find a hat to wear that still feels like you, but
Right.
as representing a version of you that is flowing in that space. But make sure you're then always finding an environment to let the real version of you, the whole version of you out because we can end up wearing that many hats that we forget what it feels like without one on. And that was me for a little while. So I think I still felt like me, but it just felt like a watered down version of me. And I guess that's really important to mention as well. Like, make sure you're not dimming your light for anyone. If it's too bright, tell them to move out of the way. It's not your fault. Keep shining, girl or guy, whoever you are watching this. And I think
Exactly.
that's the point. there is, like I was saying, there is no right way for this. Find your light, find what makes you shine, start shining it, and you'll attract the people that are on your vibe. If people around you don't like it, they will find their own alternative pathway that is not being blinded.
Absolutely.
You know, don't stress. It's all going to work out in its divinest time, divinest alignment. But I think, just don't give your power away to anyone either. Like there's many gifted people in this whole industry and world, but also they're no more gifted than you are in your own right. You just need to give that same awe and wonder and worshiping energy you give to someone else, to yourself, and watch who you become.
Yep. And give yourself the time and space to let it unfold.
Mm-hmm. Truly.
All right. Well, this is a
Awesome. That's been
fantastic.
really beautiful.
Yep, I
I've
love it.
really enjoyed it.
Do you have any other last notes?
Let's just keep being the bridge to realness. I think I would proudly say me and Yuzi encompass that as much as we can on a daily basis. We show up as real as we can. We try and share the knowledge that we're going through. We try and share the awakenings, the expansions. And I think it's important to keep showing up as real as you can and
Yes.
still be that magical different person. We are still most likely the people out of anybody else we know that people are going to come to with the weird and wonderful world. But in the
Yep.
same sense, we're just out here being us. We're just out here doing it. We're out here showing up saying, listen, I'm having a bad day today. I'm not doing really well. Can we reschedule? Like, I need some time. And we're both on that vibe to be authentically real. There's no perfectness here. There's no perfection. It's all just enveloping as it needs to. And I just want you guys to know that wherever you are on your journey is exactly perfect, and there needs to be no drama and pressure for you to be this perfect, polished version because that version doesn't exist.
Absolutely.
Mm.
I just want to speak that for myself. Like, I am the most imperfect, but also like enveloped
Mm-hmm.
deepness that I will say.
Imperfectly perfect.
Exactly. Yeah. And I appreciate that. And I appreciate that about everybody else. And it's the vulnerability that I feel like coming into the space that gets us there. And I
Yeah.
do want to make that commitment that I'll always show up in my best now self, meaning the next week I could be like, oh my gosh, I got to take responsibility for that because that is not me anymore. And something came up with that.
Right.
But that's what I want to put forward. It's my best authentic self in the moment, knowing that I'm just unfolding like all the rest of you.
Yeah, literally. And just living that in the truest version of self. Bad, good days, excited days, sad days, grieving days, all the days in between, and all the versions of self. There ain't no magical 5D life going on every day here, having beautiful magical moments, and it's incredible, but they are moments in between life. And I
Yes.
think that's what we all need to have a realistic, I hate that word, but a more grounded approach to it is still going to be living life.
Yeah, for
Mm.
sure. The bridge.
Bit more joy in between.
All right, guys, we love you
Awesome.
so much.
Yeah.
Please subscribe and also, ask us questions
Yeah.
that we can answer if you have any.
Awesome. Yeah, that'd be great. And make sure, like Z said, you are following, subscribing. There is a couple of episodes out on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. So if you do want to listen to us on there, you can check that out under the same name as the titles. I'll put all the links below. And again, please do message us with any interest in the retreat that's coming up this year because spaces will fill up very fast. And
Absolutely.
if you are meant to be there, I'm sure you'll find your way there. So, on that note, keep being real, keep being you, and keep being a bridge to realness and the unknown of the wonderful realms to come.
Love you guys.
Love you.